Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Brajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jam Vishupad Paramhamsa Parivajagacharya Ashtotra Shri Srimad Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Jayam Vishnupad Paramhamsa Parivajagacharya Ashtotra Shri Srimad Grace the Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Ki Jai Grantraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. All glories to the simple devotees. All glories to the simple devotees. All glories to the simple devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. I was just curious where the I was just thinking about the cover of this Bhagavad Gita. Who is the artist? You're not sure. Oh, really? Mm. Oh, you mean so devotees in France started to use this on their Bhagavad Gita? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But it's a devotee artist. Okay, but okay. I mean, I was just curious. I don't know. Mm. Yeah. We had some complaints of Prabhu said, so your counselor is not seeing it. So I met Naveen and Yura, you don't know him, yeah. I met him in Toronto, and I asked him about that. I said, do we really need this picture in there? And I said, yeah, all of the students use it. I don't know if we use it. That's true, a lot of devotees use it. Yeah. To distribute the book. Yeah. They say something like, "Oh yeah, you heard of karma, right? You know, see the man's face. The man has a cow's face, and the cow's man face. You know, comes around, goes around. That was thing. You know." People say, oh yeah, okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So this morning we were reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, entitled Creation of the Fourth Order, Chapter 8. Dhruva Maharaj leaves home, and we're on text 36. Atapi me vinitasya Chatram Gauram Apeyishaha Suruchya Dorvachobanar Nabhine Shatyate Hidi Tapi me vinitasya Chatram Gauram Apeyishaha Suruchya Durvachobanar Nabhine Shayate Hridi Tapi me vinitasya Chatram Gauram Apeyishaha Suruchya Durvachobanar Nabhine Shayate Hridi Word by word translation. Ata api, therefore. Me, my. Vinitasya, not very submissive. Chatram, the spirit of a Kshatriya. Gauram, intolerant. Apeyishaha, achieved. Suruchaha, of Queen Suruchi. Durvachaha, harsh words. Bhanai, by the arrows. Na, not. Bine, being pierced. Shayate, remain in. Shidi, the heart. Translation. My dear Lord, I am very impudent for not accepting your instructions. But this is not my fault. It is due to my having been born in a Kshatriya family. My stepmother, Suruchi, has pierced my heart with her harsh words. Therefore, your valuable instruction does not stand in my heart. Purport. It is said that the heart or mind is just like an earthen pot. Once broken, it cannot be repaired by any means. Dhruva Maharaj gave this example to Narada Muni. He said that his heart, having been pierced by the arrows of his stepmother's harsh words, felt so broken that nothing seemed valuable but his desire to counteract her insult. His stepmother had said that because he was born from the womb of Suniti, a neglected queen of Maharaj Uttanapad, Dhruva Maharaj was not fit to sit either on the throne or on his father's lap. In other words, according to his stepmother, he could not be declared king. Dhruva Maharaj's determination therefore, was to become a king of a planet exalted even beyond that possessed by Lord Brahma, the greatest of all the demigods. Dhruva Maharaj indirectly informed the great sage Narada that there are 4 kinds of human spirit: the Brahminical spirit, the Kshatriya spirit, the Vaishya spirit, and the Shudra spirit. The spirit of one caste is not applicable to the members of another. The philosophical spirit enunciated by Narada Muni might have been suitable for a Brahmin spirit, but it was not suitable for a Kshatriya. Dhruva frankly admitted that he was lacking in Brahminical humility and was therefore unable to accept the philosophy of Narada Muni. The statements of Dhruva Maharaj indicate that unless a child is trained according to his tendency, there is no possibility of his developing his particular spirit. It was the duty of the spiritual master or teacher to observe the psychological movement of a particular boy and thus train him in a particular occupational duty. Dhruva Maharaj, having already been trained in the Kshatriya spirit, would not accept the Brahminical philosophy. In America, we have practical experience of this incompatibility of the Brahminical and Kshatriya temperaments. The American boys, who have simply been trained as Shudras, are not at all fit to fight in battle. Therefore, when they are called to join the military, they refuse because they do not have Kshatriya spirit. This is a cause of great dissatisfaction in society. That the boys do not have the Kshatriya spirit does not mean that they are trained in Brahminical qualities. They are trained as Shudras, and thus, in frustration, they are becoming hippies. However, as soon as they enter the Krishna consciousness movement being started in America, they are trained to meet the Brahminical qualifications, even though they have fallen to the lowest conditions as Shudras. In other words, since the Krishna consciousness movement is open for everyone, people in general can attain the Brahminical qualifications. This is the greatest need at the present moment, for now there are actually no Brahmins or Kshatriyas, but only some Vaishyas, and for the most part, Shudras. The classification of society into Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras is very scientific. In the human social body, the Brahmins are considered the head, the Kshatriyas are the arms, the Vaishyas are the belly, and the Shudras are the legs. At the present moment, the body has legs and a belly, but there are no arms or a head, and therefore society is topsy-turvy. It is necessary to re-establish the Brahminical qualifications in order to raise the fallen human society to the highest standard of spiritual consciousness. Om Ganitividandasya Garanjana Shalakaya Chakshudamilitamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karirvachalam Pangam Nangayate Girim Yakripatamaham Vande Shri Gurundiritanam Vanchakapadribhasha Kripasinibhavacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So I'll read the translation again. My dear Lord, I am very impotent for not accepting your instructions, but this is not my fault. It is due to my having been born in a Kshatriya family. My stepmother Suruchi has pierced my heart with her harsh words. Therefore your valuable instruction does not stand in my heart. So Srila Prabhupada, he would, in relation to, people understanding themselves, because you could say part of human life is understanding ourselves, or self-realization, because we realize, ourselves, and we realize God or Krishna. So part of realizing ourselves is also, you could say, realizing our conditioning, because if we don't realize our conditioning, then we don't really know exactly how to make progress or what to do and what not to do. So anyways, Prabhupada would say, he'd say that you could get a good sense of, you could say, your conditioning or your particular inclinations by you liking a particular activity. Of course, this means an activity which is, I don't know, you could say good or beneficial, or not just, it's not that, oh, I like to go, to the local bar and drink beer, or something. Because we're talking about like inclinations such as a Kshatriya, Shudra, Brahman. We're not talking about, So you like doing a particular thing, and people also think that you're good at it. So, for example, someone may like cooking, and other people may think, oh, he's good, or so on, so on. There's so many different things. So in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, he mentions, he's talking about the modes of material nature in chapter 18, the conclusion, perfection of renunciation. And he gives different qualities by which people work under. So I'll just read that, a few verses. Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras are distinguished by the qualities born of their own natures in accordance with the material modes, O chastiser of the enemy. Shamodamas shaucham chantir arjavameva cha jnanam vijnanam astikyam brahma karma subhavajam. Peacefulness, self-control, austerity, purity, tolerance, honesty, knowledge, wisdom, and religiousness. These are the natural qualities by which the Brahmins work. Shauram tejo datir daksham yudye chap yipalayanam dhanam ishvara bhavascha chatram karma subhavajam. Heroism, power, determination, resourcefulness, courage in battle, generosity, and leadership are the natural qualities of work for the Kshatriyas. Shir Goraksha Vanijam Vaishya Karma Swabhavajam Paricharyatmakam Karma Shudrasyapi Swabhavajam. Farming, cow protection, and business are the natural work for the Vaishyas, and for the Shudras there are labor and service to others. And Krishna says, by following his qualities of work, every man can become perfect. Now please hear from me how this can be done. So what are personal inclinations? What are our personal inclinations? That could be, we read in the Shastra, right, what certain people work under, so we could have some sense of our conditioning. Now, in in material existence, everybody practically is hell-bent or convinced that they are something they're not, namely the physical body, which also includes the mind. And also, being convinced of that, one could also think that, okay, I am a Shudra, or I am a Vaishya, or I am a Kshatriya, or I am a Brahmin, or I am a Brahmachari, or I am a Grihastha, or Vanaprastha, or Sannyas. We take these as this is us, or a man, or so on, or old, or young. But what does Chaitanya Mahaprabhu say? Does anyone know that verse? It's about, I'm not a Brahmin, I'm not a Kshatriya, I'm not a Vaishya. Yeah, so it said I'm not a Grihastha, or I'm not a Brahmachari, I'm not a Grihastha, I'm not a Vanaprastha, I'm not a Sannyasi, I'm not a Shudra, I'm not any of this, but I am a servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna, the master of the gopis, or the Lord. The lotus feet of Krishna. Okay. So, so yeah, that's who we all are, actually. And in material existence, we just take on these different roles or different costumes, whatever you want to say. And you know, sometimes people they want to be something that they're not. You know, like I don't know, something that's considered respectable in society. Okay, well, you know, a Shudra wants to be a Vaishya wants to be a Kshatriya wants to be a Vaishya wants to be a Brahmin wants to, whatever, be a Babaji in the forest. So we want to just be something that we're not, for whatever reasons. And that's just part of, I mean, that's a problem in material existence, that people want to be something they're not. The physical body and so on, different roles and this and that. So, but whatever the case is, whoever we are and whatever our conditioning is, Vedic culture teaches that we should be respectful, we should be cooperative, respectful, so on, with leaders of society. And in Vedic civilization or in Krishna consciousness, the leaders of society are the Brahmins. They're the advisors of the Kshatriyas. The Kshatriyas are leading, managing, but the Brahmins are advising. So ultimately the Brahmins are the leaders, and Kshatriyas are also leaders. And there's different types of Brahmins. There's not all the Brahmins are equal. There's different levels of Brahmins. And Brahmins who are, you could say, more detached from sense gratification, more detached from, more free from certain things, then they're considered to be more, you know, in leadership position, more someone to get guidance from. And Krishna himself mentions this, right, in one verse. What's that verse? Namo Brahmanya Devaya, Go Brahmadaya Cha, Jagaditaya Hitaya. What is it? Govindaya Namo. So he's saying the cows, the Brahmins, right? He's very dear to Krishna. Because the Brahmins are supposed to be the head of society, leading the society. So all of us within our lives, we actually need Brahmins, means Brahmin devotees, to guide us. And everybody individually, they may be a Brahmin, they may not be a Brahmin, right? Whoever they are, they may be the highest Brahmin, they may be the lowest Brahmin, they may be a complete whatever, you know. But everybody, every individual should have a few Brahmins in their life by which they take guidance from. In other words, they have ideas, they have aspirations, they have plans, they have philosophical conceptions. All of this should be checked with a few Brahmins, respectable, you know, Brahmins in their lives. Why? Because everybody needs to be guided. And also the few Brahmins, they should also have a few Brahmins like that. Everybody should be working together, you know, to guide each other, really. So that's important. And if we don't do that, then we just completely make a mess out of everything. Our philosophical conceptions are wrong, our plans are spoiled, just everything goes wrong, actually. Our aspirations, everything becomes distorted. And then we become in really bad cases, an absolute fool, right? So we have to be careful. And nowadays it's people, and Prabhupada said that over and over and over again, because there's different degrees of being in the modes. You could be in the mode of goodness to 100% or 50%. There's different degrees. Also, there's different degrees of being in the modes of ignorance and passion. So, and if one sinks down low enough in the modes, then they become like an animal, actually. And the Prabhupada said that civilization, right? Dogs, hogs, bhagavatam, camels, asses. So that's very important. That and it's true. That's exactly what happens when people just let themselves go. It's called letting yourself go. Let yourself go and you become an animal. Really. Like, for example, I'm sorry, I don't want to gross anybody out, but if it does. My mother, she was working at this, she's like a cash register, or a cashier, and she has some manager or something. And so they were leaving the business one night, and then she sees her manager like pull out of her purse some super glue. And then she's like going up towards this light, and she's like doing something with the super glue, like with her mouth or something. And my mom says, "Oh, what are you doing?" You know. And then the manager says, "Oh, my tooth fell out, so I'm just super gluing it back in." You know. I was like, "Oh, that's kind of interesting." And I said, "Why don't you just tell her to go to the dentist? You know, fix it." Yeah, it's money, but it's also just this idea of not taking care, because mode of goodness means to take care of Krishna's property, which the body is, and everything. So, the lower modes, that's teeth or something. And then, this is like really bad, but she was telling me that the same manager, she has a roommate. And the guy, he let himself go. And we're not talking he's a little overweight. We're talking about he's really overweight. And so, yeah, morbidly obese. And this guy, he was, the roommate, the manager, she would like come and bring him food in his room. The guy wouldn't leave his room pretty much. And it was like really bad. And she actually had to rush him off to the hospital. And the reason being is because, the poor guy, he took off his pants. And, there was literally maggots there on his body. And they had to rush him off to the hospital. And then, they live in a small town, so they had to go to a specialist, which was like 30 minutes away, and they couldn't deal with it there. And then the guy was in the hospital for 2 weeks. They cleaned him up, but it just like he became so in the modes that he just couldn't clean himself. He couldn't get up, couldn't clean himself, couldn't just like completely lost it. So that's what the modes of material nature do. On small degrees and large degrees. Whether it's an ashram, not getting cleaned, it's, lower modes, or whether, our bodies were falling apart, we're not doing anything about it, So sattvic means to, that's why the Brahmins are, dear to Krishna, because they know how to take care of themselves, means as spirit souls, but they also know how to take care of their physical bodies and minds. And people don't know nowadays, they don't know how to take care of their physical bodies. What to speak of their minds? What to speak of who they are, the soul? Just like this guy and this woman. They don't know how to take care of their body, what to speak of their minds. So, but the Brahmins, they know how to do that for themselves and also for others and society, and therefore they're dear. So now, and practically speaking, like everywhere within human society, nobody knows this. Nobody knows how to take care of themselves or anybody else. They don't even know who they are, what to speak of taking care of somebody. Everything that they do is just all on the mundane platform practically. I mentioned this before, but there's billboards and advertisements all around the city advertising some Planned Parenthood, which I don't exactly know 100% what they do, but they are They do abortions. That's one thing they do. And they do encourage people to, have illicit sex as much as possible. They also do that. And maybe they do some other family planning stuff. But they have an advertisement in it. It said, which nowadays is very popular, right? No judgment, just care. So, we are an institution. We're not going to judge you. We're just going to care for you. And we're also an institution that we're going to encourage you to, have as much illicit sex as you possibly want, like a, baboon, monkey. And then by chance, but it's actually not by chance, that's just a natural consequence of sexual relations, is that when there's a child there and you don't want to deal with it because it's too much money or a headache, and who wants a crying baby, what fun is that, right? Then we are going to make it very convenient for you, and we're going to abort the child. And not, like Kevin, he gets really upset about this. He said, not let it see its first birthday, So, and then they say, no judgment, just care, right? Okay, you're caring for what? You're caring for them engaging in hedonistic life, and then, are you caring for those, poor little babies, that are being boarded by the thousands and millions? No. What is the care? The care is just sense gratification. That's all they care about, practically. So, and Prabhupada would criticize this in his books, and he would say it's, asuric, it's demoniac, it's wrong. So, in other words, that's just one example, and that one example spreads all throughout the world, on every continent of the world, and in so many different ways, that disease of the lower modes and of selfishness, and hedonistic sense gratification, and just complete asuric mentality is on every single continent of the world. So the Brahmins, they are meant to rise above all this, and be knowledgeable, and care for themselves, and also care for others. And that is what Prabhupada wanted us to do. Now, it's not necessarily that everybody who joins the temple, is necessarily a Brahminically qualified or inclined person, necessarily. But the temple atmosphere does, necessitate that largely that we live in the mode of goodness and act in the mode of goodness, as in the Brahminical culture. So, yeah, it's a great time for preaching, because yeah, people don't have knowledge, people don't have guidance, people don't know who they are, people don't know what real care is. And aside from that, a lot of people are having more and more interest in things, and particularly, you could say, items of our culture, means the culture of Krishna consciousness. Whereas in 50 years ago, there was no practical interest in that. It was considered absolute weird, and only hippies and freaks would be interested in such things. For example, there's probably millions of Americans who are into yoga, right? Of course, it's physical, and they need bhakti, and they need, knowledge and all that. But nonetheless, it's still stemming from the roots of India, or the cultural civilization. And vegetarianism, right? 50 years ago, people thought, oh, that's just, Now, hospitals are recognizing it as a wonderful diet, and like Kaiser, I went to Kaiser, they said, oh, this is a wonderful diet, we recommend this. Vegetarian is right there on their pamphlets, and yeah, the doctors say, yeah, it's really good. And kirtan, all these yoga students, over time, they're getting more and more to kirtan. Somebody told me that they were up at some yoga studio here in La Jolla. They were chanting so many other mantras, but they also chanted Hare Krishna. So they chanted Hare Krishna. And naturally, because Hare Krishna has that power, right, that special power, they always chant Hare Krishna the longest. Like at the Bhakti Fest. They chant so many other mantras, they do so many other things, but the last performance is Hare Krishna, and it's the longest one. So it has a special power. So ultimately, Hare Krishna mantra will cancel all the other ones out. Yeah, Vijayate Shri Krishna, be victorious. So it's kirtan, yoga, meditation, all these things people are recognizing as at least not absolutely crazy. And a lot of them recognize them as valuable. So it's a good time to preach and to be devotees and to try to help, as Prabhupada says, the topsy-turvy civilization by ourselves becoming qualified and working to help Prabhupada and his mission. So does anyone have any questions or comments?
So, initially, Srila Prabhupada says in the beginning of the purport that, like the heart and the mind is very much like an earthen pot.
Yeah, it's true.
And so we see that Dhruva Maharaj, even though he was, my question, just to get straight to the question, how do we balance the balance of the natural human emotion and also being thoroughly detached? Because he was obviously affected by what his mother said, and then he could have went about it many different ways, but he kind of embraced his natural direction of his Kshatriya spirit to act in such ways, and so on and so forth. He did what he did. So how do we balance? He could have been like detached about it and kind of just went about his life, and then at the same time not neglecting that we are in these bodies, and we are trying to live within our own mind, body, and souls. So, is there anything to say about that?
Yeah. Prabhupada. Oh, okay. He's saying that there's this statement here. It says, Prabhupada says, purport, "It is said that the heart or mind is just like an earthen pot. Once broken, cannot be repaired by any means." So, and he was saying that how do we balance the human emotions that we all have and being detached? So, Prabhupada himself, he would say on occasions that he was discouraged by certain things. And even Prabhupada said in that movie, Hare Krishna movie that came out, there was a recording, Prabhupada said, "Oh, I was depressed," And Prabhupada even would exhibit, I don't know if you want to say, that whole time in LA where devotees, they're taking his mail and they're filtering his mail, and there was some idea of kind of putting him in the background and taking over. And Prabhupada was really upset about that. And you could say almost physically, he was actually physically sick from it. Lack of appetite and so on. So it's not that, when one becomes a pure devotee, they don't have any emotions. The emotions are there, but they're, you could say, spiritualized or Krishnized. But still they're there, and one could become discouraged or depressed or even sick physically from certain things that happen. So, so the idea is that, but the devotee ultimately doesn't hold any grudges towards anybody, and also doesn't give up in their Krishna consciousness. And it's also, ultimately, it's not that they, you could say, lose their joy. I mean, Prabhupada still had that. He was still ecstatic in Krishna consciousness, but it was just some external things that... And Prabhupada gave the example of an ocean. So the ocean may become disturbed on the surface, but then you go deep, and it's very calm. So yeah, we may become disturbed naturally, because we all have emotions, but then the idea is if we're Krishna conscious, then deep down it's calm. So, but yeah, it's true. I mean, we have to be careful because, we just have to be careful because if we want our relationships to be good and nice and all that, then relationships in this world are very, it could easily be problems. And Prabhupada gave this example of life members. He said that, it said that the heart or mind is just like an earthen pot. Once broken, cannot be repaired by any means. So once a life member is hurt or cheated or abused or exploited in any way, then it's just like that. You break the pot and it's very hard to repair. You actually can't repair it. It means the relationship never is the same. So, yeah, that's the difficulty. And so yeah, we just have to be careful. And therefore, we, the qualities of sattva, right? Self-control, all these different things. What does it say here? Self-control, right? Peacefulness, austerity, purity, tolerance, honesty, knowledge, wisdom, religiousness. So if these qualities are there, then our relationships are, you could say, less likely to, be problematic. So I don't know, maybe Javita Prabhu or somebody else wants to say something about the topic. I don't know.
Well, there's a... There needs to be like a distinction between material emotions and spiritual emotions, because material emotions are just conducted by the modes of nature, and like a pure devotee, Srila Prabhupada, he may have felt emotion, but our whole philosophy is about emotion, but it's about pure emotion. So Prabhupada became discouraged. I remember this thing sticks in my mind. He had these two servants, Govinda Dasi and Gaur Sundar, I think his name was, her husband, who helped him right after he had that stroke, and they traveled with him and everything, and there was a very nice relationship there. He really trusted them, he relied on them. But then this Gaur Sundar, after a certain point, he was recovered, and they needed a place, so you go and preach. So he went. They started a temple in Hawaii, or at least they took over the temple there. Maybe it was there already. They were preaching. And she famously was able to grow tulsi, and that was the first tulsi. I forget what year, probably early 70s, 70, 71. But he went off. He went off, and he actually sold the temple. Got $40,000.
Took the money.
Yeah, he went off with the money. And I remember reading the letter, and Prabhupada said, this came as a great shock to me. And that's just, one of the many emotions. I mean, he became very angry when the devotees would do some nonsense, and he would, speak angrily sometimes, and it was actually a blessing. Devotees would really kind of would enter the heart, and devotees would be transformed from that anger. It's a blessing when it's, but but when he became angry, it was almost like a passing storm. Materially, when you become angry, it affects your whole body, and sometimes you can't control it, and it's based on some personal sense gratification that is a bit taken away or threatened or not going to happen, right? Kama, krodha, vijayati.
You took my samosa.
But with Srila Prabhupada, he used it as kind of almost like a surgical instrument to cut out the and artas. And that was true of all the emotions. You know, his depression didn't become disabling. You know, he was depressed because the preaching was stopped, or some nonsense happened, money was lost, you know, the whole thing. But oftentimes he would respond to that with greater effort, like that whole thing where the devotees got cheated at the beginning, you know.
By Mr. Price.
Mr. Price. I don't know if that was his real name, I think. But, you know, his business acumen kicked in, you know, and his fighting spirit, and he was able to get all that money back, you know. So it's an important distinction. The pure devotees, they show all kinds of emotions, especially obviously, you know, emotion toward Krishna, positive emotions, crying and all these things. And that's really what almost one of the main things that attracts you is that this love for Krishna exhibited. So that's but in our own devotional life, what does Krishna say in the second chapter? You know, it says sukha dukkhe same kritva labha labha jaya jayo. You have to whether something is a cause of happiness or distress, you have to be same, you have to be equipoised. That word equipoised, which is spelled equiposed, so long some devotees still pronounce it that way. But the idea is to be equipoised in happiness and distress. That's right in the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita. That don't let the modes of nature affect you and put you on this roller coaster. That's what the material world is all about. But become equipoised, and on that basis build your spiritual emotions, and that's really what we're looking to do. So that it's a big topic. Ultimately, this whole philosophy is aiming toward cultivating the actual pure emotions toward Krishna that constitute love of God, and there's a great variety of them also. You know, so Hare Krishna.
So I guess my understanding of a pure devotee is that even when they do get depressed or discouraged, it's still ecstatic. It's not that they're feeling material depression or misery and they're just tolerating it, but it's actually spiritual depression or frustration, and it's actually pure ecstasy is my understanding. And another thing is I'm not sure if pure devotees are always in control of their emotions. In fact, my understanding is they're not. So a pure devotee might be talking about Radharani in a lecture or something, and all of a sudden waves of ecstatic love come over the pure devotee, and he's trying to like control it because he wants to speak, but it just like overwhelms him. So I'm not sure if it's accurate to say that a pure devotee can just turn their emotions on and off like a light switch, like they have complete, mechanical control over their emotional state. I think sometimes, like Prabhupada even made statements like that, like when he would hear Mayavadis talk about how Krishna didn't exist or stuff, he even made statements like, I just can't help myself, I just become so angry. Yeah, I think sometimes pure devotees they're tossed around by the waves of ecstatic love. They're tossed around by the emotions emanating from God. And there is, of course, this idea of self-control and control over the mind and everything. But then there is also this idea of being tossed around in the ocean of love of God helplessly.
You spoke earlier about, we were speaking earlier about I'm not this, I'm not that. Whereas, I'm not a Brahmin, I'm not a brahmachari, et cetera, et cetera. Now, Lord Chaitanya based a lot of his activities upon that philosophy, and even Krishna stated himself that in this age, sannyas is not to be taken kind of thing. So I'm curious, Prabhupada based the foundation of this movement upon the Varnashram, idea, concepts of it. And we identify ourselves through the Varnashram system.
Yeah.
Brahmacharis, Brahmins, etc., all the way up to sannyas, in fact, which was, I wouldn't say condemn, but Krishna said no. But so I was just curious. It's like, how do we resolve this apparent conflict or of interest or I mean, how do we discern between what is actually scripturally correct versus how we are acting today?
Yeah. Well, Prabhupada said he wanted to establish Varnashram and
I was asking him about how, scripturally speaking, Lord Chaitanya and Krishna himself, they all basically said that, like Lord Chaitanya said, I'm not Brahmin, I'm not brahmachari, sannyas, all this. And even Krishna said that we're not to take sannyas, we're not qualified to take sannyas in this age. But yet this movement is based upon the philosophy and the ideas of the Varnashram system. And I was just trying to understand, trying to figure out, what is right.
Yeah, Prabhupada wanted to establish Varnashram, and then he was, working towards that. And, Bajrayana Swami quotes that quote from Prabhupada saying that, so, some devotees say, oh, you don't need Varnashram, and then Prabhupada say, okay, then why, then if you don't need a Varnashram, then why are all of you falling down, why there's so many fall downs? So in other words, Varnashram, acting within the rules and regulations and guidelines of a society and, people acting in certain roles could help people, you could say, become stabilized so that they could engage in Krishna consciousness and not just, fall down. So, traditionally the Vaishnavas would just, go out to Vrindavan and go out to Radhakund, put on the lungi and chant Hare Krishna, that's it. But how many people could really do that successfully? So therefore a society, therefore rules and regulations, therefore all these cultural things to help. So, I don't know, Javita, what do you say? What do you say? You don't say? Okay. But there are devotees who, like Bhakti Raghava Swami and others, who have written books about Varnashram. Shivaram Swami just wrote a book, and they have classes about Varnashram and all that. But, yeah, the basic idea is because we're in a society, we have to, act according to rules and regulations and, positions, so we become stabilized, everybody becomes peaceful, even materially, so that they could engage in Krishna consciousness. So that's the idea. But if one is liberated, if one is, completely Krishna conscious and above all that, then they don't really need to engage in it. They could just, go anywhere, go to some cave and chant Hare Krishna and be completely absorbed in Krishna. And ultimately, Varnashram doesn't mean anything at the time of the death when somebody's, laying on the bed about to leave their body. If somebody's in the mood of a sannyasi or means Kshatriya or Vaishya or thinking they're this or thinking they're that, doesn't mean anything. Like, what matters is Krishna consciousness, being Krishna conscious. So ultimately that's what matters, but these things are all, you could say, tools that help us become Krishna conscious because we're not liberated yet. And even if we are liberated, we'll still more than likely act according to those positions for the example of others and so on. Like Prabhupada didn't need to, Prabhupada could have just, also like Haridas Thakur went to a cave, he was liberated, he could just chant Hare Krishna, but he was acting in a particular way for the benefit of society. So that's the idea. The basic idea, yes. Ryan will be the last man.
It's almost kind of a Mayavadi idea to think that we can just ignore the body and just pretend like it doesn't exist or it doesn't have needs or it won't affect us when we're in the practicing stage. In fact, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita very clearly, one should not eat too much or eat too little, sleep too much or sleep too little. So Krishna's material energy in the form of our bodies actually does exist. It's not illusion, and we can't pretend like it's not there and it isn't what it is. And we're forced, you have to work through your bodily situation.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting, of course, we don't want to meditate on the body, but actually if you consider Vaishnavism, there's a million different bodily adjustments you have to constantly make. Don't eat too much, eat too little, sleep too much or sleep too little, don't eat garlic, don't eat onions, don't eat meat, don't take intoxicants. There's like a billion different bodily adjustments we have to make constantly to practice bhakti yoga properly, actually, which means there needs to be a certain amount of meditation on the body.
Yeah.
And it's essential. And so we don't pretend like the body doesn't exist. We don't pretend like our bodily situation won't affect us. We acknowledge that this energy of Krishna is real, and we really are bound by it, and we have to work through it. So that's the idea. So if we are conditioned, if we have the conditioning of a Shudra prior to coming to Krishna consciousness, it's not going to go away overnight just because we chanted a few rounds. That conditioning of a Shudra will last for most of our lifetime. And we have to work with it. We can't just therefore go sit in a cave and chant, like you said, all day, because that's someone has to be highly conditioned by the mode of goodness to be able to sit all day and just meditate and chant. So if we have the conditioning of a Shudra or Vaishya or Kshatriya, then in order to keep our minds active in Krishna's service and not just in Maya, we have to work according to those propensities. So if we have the Shudra conditioning, then we should go fix Krishna's car, or, the temple car or whatever. And it's absolutely essential. Yeah, we can't just pretend like we don't have the bodily conditioning that we have.
Yeah, I mean, like devotees bring up from a material point of view, Jayananda Prabhu, Prabhupada's disciple. He was a highly advanced devotee, and Prabhupada recognized him as a Vaishnava saint, and he's there in on every Rath Yatra, a picture of him throughout the whole entire world for the rest of ISKCON goes on, however long that is. I mean, he's a really important person, actually. And from a material point of view, devotees would bring up that he had an inclination of a Shudra, which is fine. He was building the carts and fixing the Sankirtan cars and working hard, physically working hard. That was like his main service. But Prabhupada recognized him as a pure Vaishnava, and he was, and he is. So nothing wrong, with all the inclinations, but they should be engaged purely in Krishna's service. And then one is exalted. Of course, you don't want to be exalted, but then one is exalted or raised to the platform of Krishna consciousness. So yeah, we can't ignore, like Ryan's saying, it's there. We just have to engage it. And the body, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, you take care of the body, actually becomes, you could say, devotional service, because you're doing it so you can engage in Krishna consciousness. So. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure how that goes.
I saw it the other day, man. I wish I could report it. Is that one more thing?
I don't know if you want to say one more thing.
Just quick, I was just thinking, just in relation to this verse, giving more into our understanding that we're in these bodies and these minds. I was listening to one lecture by Giraj Maharaj, and he was expanding on this. Rana Maharaj always encourages, like he always lectures on like Vaishnava Seva means to serve the body, mind, and soul of the body.
Yeah, I think I heard that lecture, yeah.
And so Giraj Maharaj was expanding on that. And I'm here at this scenario where Dhruva Maharaj is completely devastated. And it's like, and then Srila Prabhupada compares his heartbreak to that of an earthen pot. I mean, if you break an earthen pot, it's practically unmendable.
Yeah,
To try to reglue all of that.
yeah.
And so I was thinking about how, and just in terms of relationships, if we want to serve each other's through our mind and bodies, we can do so through encouragement. And if such situations, actually, because stuff happens, incidents come about, and there are a situation where a devotee may be
Yeah, we have to be careful. Try not to let certain situations manifest. So, but yeah, we serve Vaishnavas. They're, you know, on the bodily platform, on the mental platform, you could say, and also on the spiritual platform. There's different ways, you know. Vaishnav's cold, you give him a sweater, right? Stuff like that. All right, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.